Hello again. This is segment 14. I'm Dr. Troost, returning to the issue of aggression, which was discussed in my book, Apes or Angels, Darwin, Dover, Human Nature, and Race. This is a highly controversial issue because no one wants to believe that there are significant differences between and among the races in terms of the statistics for crime, which on the face of it would reflect potential innate differences, genetic differences in the propensity or the tendency to do crimes of different kinds. Crimes, of course, can range from trivial thievery to murder. So they run a great gamut. They often involve defects in character as well, so that usually we find that criminals have a whole lot of character defects, including frequent lying, in addition to their tendency to commit crimes which are violations of the law in the first place, in most cases, and therefore there are a whole lot of complex factors involved. However, the phenomenon of aggression in humans is part of human nature. Aggression must have been the norm. In fact, it had to be universal among primitive Homo sapiens, going back to our ape ancestors. So there's no question that the hunter-gatherer groups, tribal groups that were migrating all around the earth roughly 50 to 60,000 years ago, had to be extremely aggressive people who could use violence on their own, and certainly substantial violence against aliens whom they came upon in their travels. There had to be certainly a lot of tribal warfare and death by stoning, use of clubs, physical combat, hand-to-hand combat, and so on. Probably even cannibalism as well. So the idea of violence as part of human nature is a fundamental concept. The breakup of humans into migrating groups across the earth, as I mentioned in previous segments, would have produced a gradual evolutionary process of diversification, which is perfectly natural. It occurs everywhere, and which would eventually bring about possible differences as humans became domesticated under agriculture and urbanization. Those groups that were first domesticated could have been domesticated further than other groups that were not practicing agriculture, and that alone could have created racial differences in aggression. We don't know how many of the factors involved in genetic differences in the expression of aggression are due to genes, disease, environmental factors, dysfunctional families, and so on. However, in segment 13, I was discussing the MAOA L gene as a potential factor in creating aggressive behavior. And certainly there are dopamine receptor genes and other genes dealing with brain chemistry that are potential candidates for problems with aggression. People who are, psychological studies have shown that blacks, for instance, are more impulsive than whites. Black children, very young children, show higher impulsivity than white children. White children show higher impulsivity than Asian children of the same age. And impulsivity is certainly a frequent factor in criminal behavior. So in my book, I discuss brain differences, which are potentially candidates for the causative factor in bad behavior. including criminal behavior, such as the prefrontal cortex being smaller as a potential factor, the prefrontal cortex activity, metabolic activity even, differences in activity, lower activity usually implies greater criminality. So we are looking at the structures of the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, possible defects in the amygdala, which is the rage center, the anger center of the brain, which is mediated by other parts of the brain, including the prefrontal cortex, in terms of controlling behavior. A defective amygdala, a tumor on the amygdala, and so on, can create increases in violent behavior. So there are a variety of potential structural defects and genetic defects that could be responsible. But going to this chart over here, we see that certainly in terms of the expression of violent behavior, the blacks are by far the most violent people on earth. 13% of the U.S. population, 37.5% of the prisoners in 2006. That's astronomical. They're almost a majority of the prison population, while in the general population they are only 13%. 11% of all black males 20 to 34 years of age in 2006 were in jail or in prison. That's shocking. In 2006, the blacks committed 39.3% of all violent crimes. And for the 3 decades, 1976 to 2005, blacks committed 52% of all murders. 13% of the population committing 52% of the murders. So we have a overwhelming mountains of data, and this is with the mainstream media rarely making generalizations about crime and race. They avoid it. It's politically incorrect. And therefore the general public, especially the white or Asian victims of black crime, mostly white, are left in the dark. Unless they read very carefully, do a lot of reading, a lot of studying, they may not find this out. They are really unclear as to which group causes the greatest amount of crime. Jesse Jackson felt guilty about even the thought crime of believing that his family would be in danger if they were in an alley and they saw a black group of young men, a group of black young men approaching them in an alley. He felt guilty because he felt he would feel afraid in that situation. He had every right to be afraid if he's a rational person, because rationality insists that we look at this data and we worry because of that data. It's very real. And furthermore, across many societies, from South Africa, Jamaica, UK, USA, Haiti, Congo, across just about every society that has any kind of substantial black population, there is much more crime and violence committed. The Rwandan genocide was black upon black criminality and violence and murder, which potentially could have been prevented by international intercession by the UN, for instance, with the proper force. However, the tendency to commit these violent acts is there in the black population to a much higher degree than in the Asian or white population. That's simply a fact of life. We have not worked out the genetic intricacies yet. How much is MAOA? How much is prefrontal cortex defects? How much is too much testosterone? In some cases, many people in prison have an extra Y chromosome, super males we call them. Many of those are black. And low IQ contributes to violence as well. So soon we will have greater clarity on the causes of violence, but race is a major factor. Thank you very much.